You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we contemplate the mysteries of the cosmos through the lens of philosophy, magic, and more. It's time to talk about a very serious matter. Are you prepared for an alien invasion? It may seem like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the threat may be very real. And that's why the Galactic Alliance is here to help. With our state-of-the-art technology and top-of-the-line defense systems, we're ready to take on any extraterrestrial threat that comes our way. But we can't do it alone. We need your help, citizens of the galaxy. So if you see something suspicious, say something. Report any strange activity to your local Galactic Alliance outpost immediately. And if you want to be extra prepared, sign up for our Alien Defense Training Program. Learn how to use a laser blaster, navigate through space, and communicate with alien species. Who knows? You might even make some new alien friends along the way. So remember, stay vigilant, stay prepared, and together we can keep our galaxy safe. A public service announcement from the Galactic Alliance.
Hi, this is Liam Martin with the Exile Minds podcast, and you're listening to the network that never stops seeking Troubled Minds Radio, KUAP Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to Troubled Minds. Join us as we discuss an upside-down world that nobody seems to notice.
You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where the strange is just another day at the office, and the unexplained is our playground.
It's alive, waiting. Now clear your minds.
I live in the weak and the wounded.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
I just can't take no pleasure in killing. Just some things you gotta do.
7 days. I've shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shame?
There's nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm my number one fan.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Lying, pale, emotion. That's the girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
You know it's Halloween.
Nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm my number one fan.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
It was an excellent day for an exorcism.
Like I said, girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Do you know what the most frightening thing in the world is? It's fear.
Have you checked the children?
How do you know my name? I didn't tell you my name.
Hang up.
I didn't tell him my name.
No, I was tired. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid.
No, be afraid. Be very.
Stay on the road. Beware of the moors. Beware the moonlights.
They must become night. No sun. I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
I'm eternal.
The blackest eyes.
What do we do?
Why don't we just wait here for a little while? See what happens.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Exile Minds podcast with me, your famous host, Liam Martin, here on another epic journey, hopefully. Anyway, but yeah, today, another episode, the Exile Minds podcast, number, how many are we on now? 43, I think this one is. Yeah, episode number 43. Today, we've got Enchanted Éire. Okay, we're going to talk about, although we're not supposed to say it, the land of Fae. We're not supposed to say fairies, but we're going to talk about what we call fairies. But we'll see. You're not actually supposed to say that, apparently. So instead, we've called the show Enchanted, and there's some Irish here, and it's pronounced Na, as in the Na Daoine Maithe. Na Daoine Maithe. So the Na Daoine Maithe, that's the little ones, the good ones. So we're going to call them the good ones. The people of the hill. So we're going to talk about the people of the hill today from the Enchanted Éire. So join us on a magical journey into the heart of Irish mythology as we delve into the enchanting realm of the Fae that we're not going to say. That keeps coming up, but we'll see. We'll see what it says. But yeah, in this episode, we're going to cover the secret. So the land of Fae in the world inhabited by the Aos Sí, which we'll get to. Islands, fairies, and magical beings. So it's not just it's magical beings in general as well. So we'll explore the other world as we're talking about the other. And Terence McKenna uses that term in terms of talking about the psychedelic realms and these like potential other dimensions and stuff. So we'll talk about the other. Sometimes we're referring to, well, we are referring to that, the other world, but it's the same as like the land of Fae, and it's also known as what we call in the Christian world, it's a purgatory as well. That's one of the things that Saint Patrick, famous patron saint of Ireland, Saint Patrick, one of his things he was famed for and accredited for was converting people of Ireland to Catholicism. And to explain the other world, what we're going to talk about today, he came up with the idea of purgatory, trapped in between heaven and hell, to explain where these beings came from, because it was such an integral part of the culture that it's like everyone's just like, well, it's just everything's just totally real. So, and I'd heard from there used to be a podcast show on a YouTube a few years ago, probably about 10 years now since that was on. But anyway, the guy kind of just gave it up, disappeared. I think someone else may have took over the name of the show or whatever, but it was called a Capricorn Radio. It was an Irish guy called James Swagger. And he said that everyone in Ireland kind of like totally used to be a thing. That everyone just believed in the little people until this kind of scholar wrote this book in sort of the 1800s or the early 1900s. And yeah, and then everyone was like, I don't believe in it. It's just silly. So people, that's when it came to be seen as a silly thing. But up until then, it was just a normal, just totally accepted thing. I always found that was an interesting thing coming from an Irishman as well. So we're going to have a look into this today, the world of the other, where time dances to a different tune. So they say, where the ancient mounds and the fairy forts serve as portals to this mythical land, as it says in the folklore. So let's discover the captivating tales and encounters of the Fae, from the benevolent encounters to mischievous escapades. Whether you're a folklore enthusiast or simply curious about enchanting stories that we have woven themselves through the fabric of Ireland into this podcast, well, this podcast, the Exile Minds podcast today, is going to be a ticket and a portal into the other world. So grab your shillelagh stick and don yourself in some green attire if you fancy doing that. Get all Irish today, and we'll embark on a journey to the land of Fae in Éire, Enchanted Éire, Enchanted Island. And we're not going to say that anymore, but we're going to say the good people, the people of the hill. Na Daoine Maithe, the Maithe. We'll call them the Maithe. So to start with, then let's have a little bit of folklore. Get rid of my spinning globe here, and we'll just bring in the share screen here. Right then. So, I'll just give you a bit of folklore that I've researched, and then we'll get into one of these articles by I'm going to start with Irish Central. But to start with, I did a bit of research myself, went to the chatbot, ChatGPT. In fact, I'll get my mush off there for now. And yeah, we'll have a look at this then. So here's some information I looked up. So the land of Fae in Irish folklore is these people known as the Aos Sí. The Aos Sí, also known as the Tuatha De Danann. So that's the Tuatha, Tuatha, the Tuatha De Danann. They're a supernatural race of beings in Irish mythology. They're often often associated with the land of Fae and are considered to be the fairies or magical folk of Ireland. They are believed to have inhabited the island before the arrival of humans and were eventually pushed into the Otherworld. Like I say, we discussed the Otherworld. What specifically it says in the folklore is the land of Fae is often considered to be part of the Otherworld, a realm parallel to our own. In this place of eternal youth and beauty where time moves differently. Again, it's mentioned twice now, sort of in the sort of intro, but then, yeah, there's this association with time kind of not quite happening the same. I suppose a little bit like Australian dream time as well. I think there's a thing with that. It's just time's not the same. Or it's land before time sort of thing. But yeah, and not only is it eternal youth and beauty, but time moves differently. The world is often accessed through portals like ancient mounds, fairy forts, or certain lakes. So lakes again. Where's Derek? Where's me? A shout out to the Night Stalker, Derek. Who often brings up water and portals, or just like almost like basically portals. Whenever there's a weird phenomenon, there's usually water involved somewhere nearby, and it does seem to be the thing. And I remember jokingly saying to him once, "Oh, what about Pine Gap then? That's one of the most super secret places on the planet, like kind of high security, and I reckon that's where they do the Stranger Things type stuff of these days. I reckon it's about Pine Gap. You hear all kinds of stories from there." And he was like, "I bet it's near water." Derek, the Night Stalker. Shouts out to the Night Stalker. I said, "I bet it's near water." And I thought, Australia, Northern Australia, right in the middle of the desert. No, it's not. And as it went in and had a look, and it was near a water source. So it seems to always come up though. When I check it now, and I always think of Derek, so I always check if something's got water nearby, spooky stuff, and it tends to be. So that's weird. They even include it in Lost as well. So I don't know. There's the water thing to it, but yeah, they do mention that the Otherworld stuff, access through portals, ancient mounds, fairy forts, or certain lakes. So I don't know. Anyway, on with some of this. Get myself back off there. On with some of this folklore then. So the Otherworld, we've done that bit. So the folklore, the fairies, the fae, the Irish folklore, it says that they're a diverse group of supernatural beings, and not just one type. And they can be benevolent or mischievous, harmful or helpful, depending on the mood and treatment they receive from humans. Folklore is filled with stories of encounters with the fairies, that their interactions with humans and the consequences of breaking the fairy taboos. Fairy forts and rafts in Ireland can be found in many circular earthworks as mounds known as fairy forts or rafts, Raths. It's believed that these were the dwellings of the Aos Sí. Disturbing or damaging these sites is considered bad luck and can anger the fairies. In fairy tales, Irish folklore is rich with fairy tales that feature encounters with the Fae. These stories often involve humans stumbling into the land of the Fae, where they must navigate various challenges or make deals with the fairies. Okay, so this is where we do the caveat, the little disclaimer. It's important to note that beliefs in fairies and the land of Fae are deeply rooted in Irish culture and have persisted over the centuries. Okay, they've hung around, the stories have remained. While many people today may not literally believe in these beings, the folklore and the stories continue to be cherished as part of Irish heritage and storytelling. But the thing is, like I was saying before, it was kind of always a thing where they just straight believed in this stuff back in the day, until some scholars kind of come along and say, "Oh no, it's just silly," and it's still cherished. But it's remained for centuries. So if it was all kind of silly talk, you think, maybe some of it would go away and adults wouldn't really believe it. I don't know. Are the Irish that good at storytelling? They convince the kids and just keep the lie going. I don't know. For things to stand the test of time, I often think there has to be some substance to them, sort of thing. But that's what we'll find out. Thing is, though, the Irish do actually, even today, take it a bit more seriously than you might expect. So, starting with getting to this article, Irish Central. Let's have a look at this then. So, irishcentral.com. Ireland takes fairies more seriously than you might think. If you think fairies are a mere relic of Ireland's mythological past, you are very much mistaken, sir, says Mary Phelan of irishcentral.com. This is from this year as well, from May 2nd, 2023. So it says, 2 generations ago, Irish people shouted in warning about throwing water out of the door, lest the fairies should be passing. The first glass of freshly brewed batch of poitin was always kept for fairies, just to keep them one side. Just to keep them one side. Ireland's first president, this is an interesting little fact here. Ireland's very first president was called Douglas Hyde. And Douglas Hyde, I'll highlight it for the video viewers. So Douglas Hyde, who held office until 1945. So he was in office, he finished office then in 1945. So that's middle of the Second World War. So it's not even that long ago. He believed, so this is the Ireland's first president, Douglas Hyde, who held office until 1945, believed in fairies, as did the acclaimed Nobel laureates W.B. Yeats and Samuel Beckett. So Samuel Beckett, Nobel Prize winner, and W.B. Yeats both believed in fairies, as well as the first president, Douglas Hyde of Ireland. So 1945. So up until 1945, those high-profile people, just like, this is the thing. Okay, moving on with the article in irishcentral.com. For a very long time, Irish people have been following a set of rules passed down by tradition which carry one sole aim: to not annoy fairies. In fact, the author of this very article is very conscious of a breach. Fairies should never be referred to as fairies. They are the good people or the little people. While Irish people, for the most part, no longer making home brews of poitin given to the fairies a warning of a splash, they are still abiding by one big fairy superstition. They refuse to meddle with fairy property. All over Ireland, farmers have left portions of their land in the form of ring forts untouched for centuries. These are believed to be the homes of the fairies and are overgrown with scrub and brush and are a waste of productive land. But farmers would rather see this resource go to waste than risk incurring the wrath of the fairies, which can result in anything from death to crop failure. But it's not just the agricultural practice that has been disrupted. In 1999, local council in County Clare worked their plans for a motorway around a fairy bush after coming under pressure from the folklorist and storyteller Eddie Lenihan, who feared additional fatalities on the road would occur if the fairy's bush was tampered with. Mr. Lenihan said the bush was a meeting point for the Munster fairies to battle with their peers from Connacht. So he was saying it was a fighting place and they had to end up doing the motorway or going around it. He wrote a letter to the Irish Times, which was picked up by the New York Times in an article headlined, "If you believe in fairies, don't bulldoze their lair." The tree wasn't touched. 2007 construction began on the M3 motorway. The M3, those M letters for roadways in Britain, in the UK, they're like, they're your big highways are motorways. So so the M3 motorway would be a main road construction. So in 2007 began the M3 motorway construction through the historic Tara Skyrim Valley, despite many protests due to the archaeological significance of the area. The work went ahead, but an anti-motorway activist later attributed a litany of terrible occurrences to a curse that had been unleashed due to the interference with the fairy force. These terrible incidences included the death of a worker, serious injury to the chief health and safety officer from a falling tree, and the Minister for Environment being held up in a hotel by an armed gang, and Ireland's economic recession all happened at the same time. So let's listen. I don't. Oh, sorry. It took a minute. I don't mean to laugh at this misfortune. Okay, but let's listen to that. That makes it sound so totally for real. For centuries, they've not been messing with these fairy forts, been leaving them alone. The one time in 2007. So all this time, and then in 2007, they did that. They decided to ignore it, and then somebody gets killed. One of the workers, someone has a serious injury for the chief health and safety guy of all people from a falling tree. Like that's a natural occurrence could do that, and then the Minister for the Environment of all things gets held up by armed gunmen, or maybe women. And then Ireland has a recession as well, all at the same time. Come on, there's got to be. I mean, come on. There's got to be something going on there. It does. Well, I'm just understanding it. Just kind of make it seem real. But yeah, so some of the fairy rings there. I'll zoom in a bit for the video viewers. Yeah, some of the fairy forts. They're like big mounds. They're like big trenches. Yeah, well, the mounds, but they go in circles. And then like a big trench, and then another one, and a big trench, and there's like a plateau in the middle. But yeah, but these concentric ring mound things, like I say, you could potentially be farming inside of them, but no, they're just leaving them alone. So yeah, because they're on mounds as well, it probably would be good for certain types of crops as well. Maybe whatever. But that's the way it goes. Say, there's no doubt the public take the potential menace of fairies seriously, but what do the experts think? How do they explain the attitude of the little people? The director of the National Folklore Collection at the University of College Dublin notes the island was of the past a very different world and was quite literally a darker place. In every culture, you have supernatural beings, and those supernatural beings are generally associated with marginal places that are isolated, says Christopher McCatherley. That I've so butchered that name. Christopher. So Christopher says, all of this evolved in an era where there was no street lighting, no electrification, and people were depending on candles and lamps to light their way. So essentially, fairy being belief may involve an element of things that go bump in the night. The Irish Folklore Commission has recorded thousands of stories from all over Ireland about incidents, experiences involving fairies. And so she's keen to stress that it's keen to stress that it's not for him to make judgment on whether or not something is likely to have happened, but it makes an interesting point that one of the biggest fairy superstitions, the changeling is one of the biggest ones. There is an idea in Ireland around children being abducted by fairies and a changeling being put in their place. The changeling would be an old fairy dressed up to look like a child. This fear could have been tied up with the idea of a very small child suffering from TB, tuberculosis, or some other wasting disease and not thriving, not developing normally as a child. People would ask themselves, why is this? And one popular explanation could be, oh, he or she's a changeling. But I don't know if people are that dumb, to be honest. I think they don't give people much credit. personally, that's not a very good explanation for me. Going on. Before they became a source of intrigue, ring forts served a practical purpose, that for the protection and defences, with farmers bringing their animals into the fort at night for safekeeping. The ring forts went out of fashion by the 17th century, and when the cattle raiding was less common and fewer wolves. The last wolves in Ireland were killed in 1786. There was much fewer wolves then in the 17th century. And at that stage, the families whom the ring forts were associated with built houses nearby instead. And it was now an abandoned ring fort that gradually became perceived as some kind of sign of the other world, some kind of preeminent sign. So maybe one of the factors which has encouraged people to associate ring forts with the fairies is that there's quite a number of ring forts. You have what's called souterrain passages, which are underground passages that were probably used for storage purposes like hiding valuables. There was a disguised entrance to these passages that's given rise to the idea that fairy forts are linked and that you can walk underground from one fort to another. These days, everyone has scientific information and explanations for strange occurrences at their fingertips thanks to smartphones. But as this dude says, it doesn't necessarily do away with the mystery. And in a country where a fear of fairies still impacts a physical landscape, as in the actions of the farmers and the road engineers, then the words of politicians, it's fairy to say the little people are allowed to play a role in the modern Ireland of today. It's fairy to say. That's as bad as my jokes. But yeah. Okay. Maybe they were just, maybe we've just got some kind of superstition building up around them. But it's lasted for centuries, and like I said, I don't think people are that dumb and keep sort of saying stuff and reporting it as well. And plus, you can ignore things, can't you? You don't report things unless you think it's really happened or something serious or something shocked you. I reckon that's how I kind of see it. Me personally, like I said, I don't think people aren't that dumb. Just in general, in real life, people are still people. I know we're talking, things in the past and this, that, and the other, but we're still going to be people like today. People aren't stupid. People can figure stuff out. Still common sense. Well, that's what I call common sense. Common. But anywho, what we're going to do now is we're going to have a quick break because we're doing radio clock time stuff. So let's, what should we do? We'll play this little 4-minute thing. I'll quickly put that on play and I'll fade it in like an absolute pro because I can. And we'll just have a break for a few minutes. We'll talk about get more into the faith folk in a moment. The Exile Minds podcast returning in just a moment. Also, Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Back in a sec.
Than interstellar space. These fridges have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat.
Is that a skull?
So you stand next to one of these black monoliths.
I found it in the alien city.
They really are impressive.
That's a horrible souvenir.
It feels like an altar to an alien god.
There he is.
Your robot brought us to the worst place yet.
Everybody good? Plenty of slaves for my robot colony? Feel like Gimmer said, he fit in better with his unit. Keeps it relaxes us. A giant, sarcastic robot. A great idea. I have a cue line I can use when I'm joking, if you like. That'd probably help. Yeah, you can use it to find your way back to the ship after I blow you out the airline.
I think your robot's angry.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
Stage 2.
Old age should burn, brave close at day.
Not hearing. Choose your own
Rage.
whatever you want.
Rage. It's the dying of the light. Yes.
Whatever it is they want you to
The
do.
wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had brought no lightning day. Do not go gentle.
Why would you do that?
Rage against the dying of the light.
Look, I'm well aware my instincts aren't the Robinson way, but there's nothing wrong with choosing to save ourselves. We have a robot, we have an engine, we can go Anywhere. Preferably a place where the ground doesn't try to eat you.
You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we peer into the future, embrace the power of AI, and delve deep into the conspiracies that shape our world.
Are you looking for a way to connect with your spirituality? Look no further than Spirit Magica Crystal Shop. They have a wide variety of crystals, from amethyst to obsidian and more, including crystal packs, unique deals, and amazing customer service. The products are made with the highest quality materials and are backed by their satisfaction guarantee. Spirit Magica Crystal Shop are committed to helping you find the tools and resources you need to live a magical life. So what are you waiting for? Visit Spirit Magica today. Use coupon code Troubled Minds, all one word, at checkout for 25% off your first purchase.
For many centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil, associated with the devil and all things dark. Let's break these stereotypes with your host, Maithe of the Temple of the Hour. Let's talk about magic of the old ways, explore the many roles of the witch, learn the tools of the craft, the history of the science behind this ancient earth-based religion on the Troubled Minds Radio Network KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Welcome back from the break, folks. Thanks for hanging in there. I'll just turn this chat off of there. There we go. Back with me, your host, Leah Martin, an Examine's podcast. Talk about the land of Fae, the fairy folk, Enchanted Eire. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go on with, we're going to look at this article in Irish Central. We've looked at what one of the skeptics are saying we've got these fairy forts that are just mounds that used to have cattle, and now they're falling in, some mystique sort of come around them. But no, people still kind of believing in this stuff, and say farmers still want to go around it. So again, we'll have a look at another article here. I'll just switch over here, get me off the screen. All right then. In the Irish Times, they did a pretty big piece on. They did quite a long one on this. So yeah, in the irishtimes.com. So links in the description. Irish Times have a historical article called "Away with the Fairies." Fairies were once feared and feted in equal measure, but does anyone still believe in them? Is the question. So, for many centuries, the Irish believed to have lived with the little people and have gone out of their way to avoid annoying them, not bringing foxgloves into the house, maintaining fairy forts, etc. As we've just described. It's not long since W.B. Yeats was communing with them regularly. That's the Nobel Prize laureate that we talked about, and the first president, as mentioned, Douglas Hyde, admitted seeing stuff, and he said he saw he's made a specific quote here, so I'll highlight it for the video people. So the first ever president, who was president until 1945 of Ireland, specifically said he saw a strange horse running around a 7-acre field. He said a strange horse run around a 7-acre field and change into a woman. That's what he said he saw. So he's talking about straight away that he's talking about metamorphosis, you know, turning into something else, shape shifting. Okay. But going on. We all know people who have crossed them. They're talking from Irish perspective because Irish Times. We all know people who have crossed them and suffered the consequences. Even the ultimate pragmatist Samuel Beckett, who also believed in him, claimed to have spoken with the ferrymen in Trinity College's front square. So that's in a blatant open place. Okay. Our first tile set, Edmund V, Éire, Edmund de Éire, I'm not sure if I've said that right, was a noted ferryman, but his wife, Sinead, was a renowned expert on the subject, and it was on her instigation that he established the Folklore Commission to research the phenomena. But how about now? Does anyone still believe in them? You would have thought not, says the writer, until the writer says, my bank manager, while discussing my property portfolio, a shack with some gnarly woodland, asked me whether there were any fairies on the land. I laughed politely, but he insisted that back home in Mayo, their best section of bog was still set aside for them. I told this to another bank employee, and she admitted that her aunt had been trapped in a field. She said her auntie had been trapped in a field for days by fairies until her grandmother broke a spell with a mirror. So that's people today. You know, that's somebody's grandmother, somebody's auntie. So, you know, that could be someone still alive today that broke that spell, that was trapped there. Sorry, her auntie she could still, you know, even if you're working at the bank, say in your 50s, your auntie might be in her 70s or 80s. She was literally one that was trapped. Well, you know, the grandmother might be around who broke the spell with a mirror. You don't know. I don't know how old these people are. So it's like, oh my god, yeah. Maybe it's stuff still going on. Yeah. But anyway, so in the Irish Times, this is why the article comes up, because someone's been in the bank sorting out, you know, got a little bit of land with some woodland on in the shack, and they got into this conversation about fairies, and then he's asked somebody else, and they've gone, yeah, my auntie was once trapped in a field for days by fairies until the grandmother broke the spell with a mirror. And you're thinking, my god, that must have been in the last few decades then. You see what I'm getting at? Because that's a bit, you see what I'm saying, don't you? I hope that's coming across. It's like that's kind of recent. So I don't know. Anyway, moving on. I realize that banks are now part of the. It's a little funny one for the reader. A little funny. It says, I realize now that banks are now part of the underworld, glorified leprechauns guarding vanishing pots of gold. But do they tend to believe in the little people more than others? So the writer here. Let me just say the writer's name is, I would say, Manchin Magan. So Manchin Magan decided to go on a bit of a quest to see how many, you know, to ask these banks what they were for. So he decided to, because this conversation come up in the bank, he decided he'll contact the Bank of Ireland and AIB and Ulster Bank to gauge the policy on fairies and whether the employees have a belief in them. AIB and Ulster Bank ignored the request, but a consumer media relations manager from Bank of Ireland had the decency to reply, says the writer. Unfortunately, we have to decline to comment. We would be precluded from making even an anecdotal reference to customer peculiarities. And so we can suspect that she might not have taken it quite, the inquiry as a serious thing and a genuine concern. But you don't mess with the fairies, as they say. So did anyone think to invite them to the gathering, says the writer? So moving on from this then, so in the Irish Times, the columnist in the Irish Times goes, all right, then, okay. So I tried the banks. Couldn't find anyone in Fairy Island willing to give me a straight answer, so I turned to the AA instead, as it struck me that the AA is it's like auto insurance people come and help you out. for motorists. They come and help you out if there's a breakdown. They're really well kind of known. Used to advertise like the fourth emergency service kind of thing. So yeah, so it says they tend to the AA. It struck me that fairies generally occupied marginal areas, wild lands, unfamiliar territory, dark roads. And so I wanted to know whether the AA received reports of them from motorists. And it just says that the AA doesn't have an official policy on fairies. So replied a spokesman, Connor Fognan, in an email. But his use of more authentically folkloric spellings of the word suggested that he knew more about it. On further quizzing, he admitted that, in his own opinion, fairies have more to do with human brains' tendencies towards pattern recognition. We see images in ink blobs, we see faces and shapes in shades, because we're predisposed to recognize patterns even when they don't exist. He recognized the demise as mostly a result of rural electrification chasing away darkness. That's what the scholars were saying, and I think that was the point that James Swagger for Capricorn Radio. That was the point he was trying to get across. That scholars are coming along and people are kind of like reluctant to sort of say stuff, and they go, "Oh yeah, since you get lights, people are not scared." But I don't know if it's so much that. But anyway, let us continue. So yeah, basically, this guy. I'll move on to another article in a minute. But this guy goes on asking people if different kind of businesses. So he's asked the AA see if anyone's got some official kind of policies on it. So he decided to contact the ESB about this. A spokesperson revealing that. Oh, right. Okay. He previously reported that the ESB had been pulverizing thousands of eels. So they decided not to return responses this time because they got a bad story from him. Okay. So, yeah. So he goes on, keeps asking different like companies and businesses what they believe in. But some people kind of said, and it said that, So we asked the radio station if it was, because them repeating that story or shadows and stuff, and radio and people being able to tell stories, and storytelling on the radio is become like it's taking the place of, the campfire story. So he contacts the radio station and say, "Do you think you're something to do with, the reason why people don't believe in fairies so much anymore?" And they said, "Oh, we thought that John Bowman, given his knowledge on the radio's history, would be the perfect person to respond." But then they said they couldn't find him. But he's a host of a weekly radio program on the station. So they don't just appear and disappear like a will-o'-the-wisp, says the writer, do they? But, obviously they didn't want to know. The National Roads Authority replied to the request for information on their own attitude towards fairies, which are come under scrutiny during the construction of the N3 motorway that I mentioned earlier. So near the Hill of Tara, and in particular the light of claims of the economic collapse that caused the desecration of the site by the sacred denizens of the underworld. But the NRA previously been made in fairy controversy with a £90 million road scheme at Latoon in County Clare back in 1999. Like I say, mentioned a folklorist. Again, he spoke up against it. So, But let's move on to another article. See what other people say. So in this one here, I've gone on a WordPress one. It's irishfolklore.wordpress.com. There's a nice image for. I thought this is pretty cool because there's a nice image of an old stone Irish like cottage type thing. A bit of thatched roof, got a bit of green, like the algae growing up on the corner, and it's all that kind of dry stone wall where there's lots of different size kind of rocks all piled up to make a house. It looks just like something out of the Elder Scrolls games kind of thing. Kind of cute. Number 22 in the thatched roof. Anyway, fairies and fairy lore. In the reality of Irish fairy, Fairies remain popular interest for many people, although not many know the true nature of these beings in the Irish context. This one gets into it a bit more. It seems to really know what they're on with here. Okay, let's just jump straight to the naming controversy. To start with, we look at the naming conventions. The word fairy is the most widely known and easily identifiable, though it is not suitable nor a respectful term to use as such, as it is falsely equates them to the English fairies who are closer to imps or the Tinkerbell type, nor as any form of fae or fairy, as in the old French or Latin, respectively. So we're not allowed to say that. We're not supposed to say them. It's supposed to be disrespectful to use this term. So I mentioned it at the beginning. Then in the Irish, like many names, it's usually you don't want to invoke the name. Okay, so typically known as the Aos Sí or the Daoine Sí, the people of the mounds. They could be referred to as the Daoine Maithe, as that's what I was told. The show the good people. So just call them the good people, or the Daoine Éire. That's the noble people, or the fair folk. And I think that's where the fairy might come from. The fair folk, as in the very fair. You got to say that they're nice people, or the other crowd, or the people of the hill, and so on. So the remainder of the article, I should reply to them. It says here, I'm going to choose one of these. So I'm going to call them the good people, or the people of the hill from now on. So society likes and dislikes. How does their society work? They have amusements similar to our own. They dance, they play music, they play games. They have been known to play Gaelic football, never soccer, hurling, bowls, chess. In terms of the games, they will sometimes elicit the help of some hapless human who dare not refuse them to referee or take part in a match. The need for a human help is a common motif, and they will often be spirited away to take part in some games, or in some cases where a human woman acts as a midwife to deliver babies for the people of the hill. They have specific dwellings, and a number of features of the landscape are often identified as being the abode of the other crowd, such as the ring forts that were mentioned. These are the circular enclosures with the earthen dwellings, mostly dating from the Middle Ages. You've got the tumuli. You've got the dolmen structures, they're like the stone structures. You use these three really big rocks and then a kind of flatter one stuck on top of them. So you've got like a Fred Flintstone super basic house. But those dolmens are supposed to be good to meditate in. And you also get lone trees that they're supposed to be known as fairy trees. Traditionally, it will be a hawthorn. These enclosures and suspected abodes are usually treated with extreme caution, even to this day. Good luck trying to find someone willing to cut down a fairy tree. So that's interesting. You'd say people are so... I don't think people are dumb. Just no, they're too superstitious or what? Anyway, moving on. They will furiously protect their dwellings, and woe betide to anyone stupid enough to mess with them. Death and destruction is all that typically awaits for those who transgress. Excuse me, I just coughed for a moment. Okay, so don't mess with the people of the hill, the good people. Don't mess with them. Their true dwellings, those that exist in the otherworld, are typically concealed from our view, similar to a magical barrier or a fiada that was said to conceal the mounds and hotels of the people of the hill. They have their own specific pathways and roads that they would travel from place to place. When building houses, it was not unusual to mark out a shape of the house with willow rods or a small stone cane. This will be left overnight to see if the house was in the way of any of the fairy paths. Oh, okay. Okay, so you see if they're going to move it. Okay, the willow rods had been removed from the ground, or the cane, or or the cairn of stones was disturbed, it was believed that the house was in the way of the fairy path, and the process would be repeated until the rods or stones were left untouched. Many tales tell of houses that were in the way, with loud noises being heard in the house at night, crashing doors and slamming doors, and houses collapsing, and general bad luck within the household. So apparently, if you don't do that in Ireland, it's a kind of, I suppose that's a kind of feng shui, in a sense. It's a very specific one, but that's a kind of feng shui. I did a recent feng shui show. Okay. So these people then. So I mean, there's a lot to. There is a lot of folklore in this, but let's just blast on a bit more through this. Like our own likes and dislikes, they have a like for gold. They like milk. The first milk, known as a colostrum or the bee sting, is often given as an offering to the people of the hill. And tobacco as well is often given to them as an offering. Most things associated with them are of a particular time. They will ride horses, but not cars or any automobiles. They fight with sticks or hurlers, but never guns or knives. Most of their activities are associated with Gaelic culture or associated with the natural landscape. When it comes to their hates, there are a number of items. They hate iron. This is one of the main repellents used when trying to discourage the others. You know, people from the other crowd use iron's the main thing to try and get rid of them. You see this a lot when trying to protect babies from being stolen or replaced by fairy changelings. I should say people of the hill changelings. It also pops up a lot in terms of the protecting when churning. Iron is an age-old deterrent against evil or supernatural forces, and many cultures around the globe believe this. As a result of blacksmith, ironworkers are usually revered or thought to possess a special power as a result of them working the iron. There is an article focusing on blacksmiths and the supernatural. If you want to read it, there's a link to it here in this WordPress article. They also have a hate for salt, which comes up with to protect yourself against demons. So they say, don't you, the witch thing, the salt, in a circle of salt, is a protection thing. So you've got that as well. And you will often encounter it being used as a protection when churning butter. So when you're churning butter, have a protection, a ring of salt around you. That's where say butter stays good. I don't know. So it don't curdle, I guess. The salt will, it says salt will be sprinkled in the lid or churned underneath the butter itself and protect the process from being interfered with. By the people of the hill. The salt is rubbed on the head of the venturing outside at Halloween. So it's used to protect anyone outside after dark. They also have a dislike for anything dirty, such as messy houses. They have an aversion to Christianity, both as the origin stories play into this and the common themes of many folk tales where the people of the hill will try to get a human to question a priest as to why they can't get into heaven. Oh, okay. Maybe that becomes, that's St. Patrick. Yeah, of course. Because St. Patrick is one of the things he's famous for is that he invented purgatory to explain this otherworldly place where they're coming from. So in that story, then it says that they can't go into heaven; they're stuck there forever. Then, so they're asking, how comes we can't go to heaven then? Because they shouldn't have an answer for that. They haven't done evil stuff, have they? How do you get out of purgatory? And you can't say to people you can't ever get out of purgatory because then you can't start a religion. So this is a good question. This is a good question to ask. You tie yourself up in knots with that, and then you have to say, if this guy's for real that you're talking to, then I don't know. That's kind of what your answer has to be. I don't know. But priests don't want to say that, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot to this. You should look into this, man. It turns out there's loads. There's loads of stuff. Let me just put this article up. But I mean, there's actually hard evidence. Yeah, I'll just jump to this quick because we're running out of time. But the etymology for elf, because they said there's lots of different types. It's not just in the winged Tinkerbell. So the etymology for elf. First, to clarify, it should be noted that the word elf is not indigenous to Ireland. The word derives from the term used in common Germanic, so Germany, the ancestor language of the Germans. English has several Scandinavian languages have elf and became the label of Irish fairies when the English began to write about the record of Irish folklore. So he's using that word because you know of it. Originally, elf was used to describe all fairies, like we're using fairies to describe all of these others, people of the hill. It's becoming a catch-all term. Over time, the term came to stand for a specific subset. The ones that small and possess supernatural powers. Other common characteristics of elves are the ability to shapeshift, which comes in again, or the possession of a great wealth. The old Germanic roots of the word, meaning the distinctions between male and roots of the words are distinctions between male and female elves, as well as good and evil elves. This specifically has been lost to the English term elf. Can apply because it applies to like all of them. Okay. And so, but then there was according to, it says mixing facts and fiction. This was from ancientorigins.net. The old elvish masters, so elfish. According to the legend, there were 6 waves of masters of Ireland, and each of them has some connection to the biblical story of the Noah flood. Today is unclear as how much of this is fact and how much is fabricated from medieval Irish monks in order to make Irish history equally as important as Israel's. In each of the waves, women play a prominent role, reflecting the unique equality present on the island before the incorporation with the rest in the rest of Europe. So there were a lot of equality and it was peaceful. And then quickly, just before we go, because we've got to shut down, there is an actual hobbit fossil person found in Indonesia, and also little people in there was the Homo floresiensis, like a real hobbit person found in Indonesia, hobbit fossil, and then in Scotland, hard evidence of Neolithic little people in Scotland. They got it saying Hawaii, Indonesia as well, and it was on the Orkney Islands in Scotland, and that's what was interesting for me. The Orkney Islands, where they've had evidence of these little people. It turns out that I was going to bring that up in the Orkney Islands, supposed to come up in the circuit show, the circuit summoning show, the last show, because some of these fairy fort mounds are, there's a group of them together and they look like a magnetron, they're like part of a circuit board. And so I don't know, and if that like segues into it, but I just thought about mentioning that because I wanted to mention it before. But anyway, we've got to finish with the show now because time's against us. So on a radio clock. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll do another show on the fairy folklore. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to talk about with this, so we'll do a bit more. And I'm Gaelic and Celtic. So anyway, but thanks very much for tuning in. The Next Minds podcast, me and Martin, and I'll catch you next week. You look after yourself, people. Take it easy. See ya.
Hundreds of times older than interstellar space. These fridges have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat.
Is that a skull?
So if you stand next to one of these black monoliths,
I found it in the alien city.
they really are impressive.
That's a horrible souvenir.
It feels like an altar to an alien god.
There he is.
Your robot brought us to the worst place yet.
Everybody good? Plenty of slaves for my robot colony?
Give him a dimmer setting. Fit in better with his unit. Thinks it relaxes us.
A giant, sarcastic robot. A great idea.
I have a cue line I can use when I'm talking, if you like.
That'd probably help.
Yeah, you can use it to find your way back to the ship after I blow you out the airlock.
I think your robot's angry.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
Stage 2.
Old age shall burn, brave close at day.
Not hearing. Choose your own
Rage,
whatever you want.
rage. It's dying.